The kids, for some reason, it was like seeing all those kids, and they wanted to be, on camera, and they would jump in front of the camera and give peace signs or wave their hands or whatever. And I guess that just kind of left a lasting image in my mind of there were so many kids everywhere. They were on school break, actually, at the time, so there was even more kids kind of out, not in school at the moment. And so I guess that was just kind of the indelible impression.
They have counseling sessions and they're bracing for an increase in emotional problems this year because, the families, they fled. There was this big emergency. Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? Then they figured out it may not be ideal, but they have a place to live. They figured out how we're going to get food. It's rations. It may not be great, but at least those kinds of pieces are in place. And then all these emotional traumas come up from what they experienced. People have been tortured in Syria, the experience of seeing their homes destroyed, losing family members, but just totally uprooting their lives. And the anxiety about the future as well, just not knowing what's going to happen. And so this has taken a real toll emotionally as well as physically.
Groups like IOCC, the International Orthodox Christian Charities, Caritas, Islamic Relief, they're all major operators there, and including other sort of more secular places, Save the Children. We saw a lot of their presence there, and I think that it's a big deal to the people. I mean, I think that they have kind of ready-built communities back in the U.S. or elsewhere that are prepared to send donations to them, and they're able to operate and facilitate distributing where the needs really are. So, I thought they were a pretty big force, yeah.
The faith-based groups also have an advantage because many of them work in the communities through congregations, through local facilities that are already there, and so they know the needs, they know the people, and there's that relationship aspect that sometimes the big agencies, UN does a huge job, they have so many resources, but they don't always have those local connections per se on the ground that can make the difference for someone just to feel that someone cares about them.
And by the way, we're talking about Christians and Muslims working together, and I thought that was pretty inspirational. I mean, Caritas, we actually got to meet a volunteer who's Muslim who's working with them. I think that it's really important for these people of different faiths to see one another and work on this problem together, and I think that that's been kind of a nice aspect of a really difficult situation.
I think the political difficulty of what to do in Syria is so overwhelming that a lot of people don't even want to think about it, or it just seems so huge, and there are no good political solutions, frankly, so people just want to avoid it. But the problem is this political situation, this war situation, has a real impact on real people. And when you ignore the political situation, when you let the war continue, who does it affect but, innocent civilians, many of them innocent, some of them maybe are fighters, but women, children, all of those people are affected by it. And while the international community has stalled on political solutions, the humanitarian disaster just keeps growing.
I can't say I came away with this with really any hope, because I think it's still a large and growing problem. So I think until there is some sort of political resolution, you're still going to be seeing refugees. This problem is going to continue to grow. Having said that, there is that urge, I think, that Americans have, to do something. And I don't know, I think part of me thinks, well, making a donation to one of these organizations, not to shill for them, we're not supposed to be shills, but, that's probably your most effective way. You can't fly into Jordan and go to Zatri camp and build houses or, work like you can here for Habitat for Humanity. Really, probably your best bet as an American here is writing a check to these organizations. They know what to do and they know what the needs are. I don't know. Beyond that, what are you going to do? You could say you want to sponsor a Syrian family here to come here to America, but that's pretty extreme. I don't think most people would be able to do that.
we saw donations that were made in the U.S., even from U.S. churches that were sent over there and then were distributed over there. So when you have individual congregations, women making quilts,
Yeah.
or people packing hygiene kits and kitchen kits, many of those were packed by congregations in the U.S. and made their way over there, and we did see them, being delivered.
That's
so even the small efforts really make a big difference. And we heard over and over again from the families, the refugee families that we met, they said, if it weren't for some of these groups, giving us these things, we don't know how we would survive. So, you can't touch everybody perhaps, but we saw real families who were directly touched by the efforts of these groups.
One of the things that kind of sticks with me is that these, the people, the refugees we talk to, these are people whose lives were disrupted in the middle of everything. A guy who owned an automotive store, a couple guys that were in law school and med school. I mean, people who were going someplace in their lives, who were mobile in their lives, are now kind of just out of sorts and in this, netherworld of not being in a place where whatever they were doing, they can't do anymore. So, I think that's kind of a difficult situation. But I think, like Kim says, with the people that work with them and the love that you do see with the workers who are assisting them, and really, I think the refugees kind of display a lot of patience for people who are in the situations they're in. You didn't see a lot of bitterness and anger. It was more like, well, this is my situation right now. I want to go back to my old life. But it wasn't with bitterness and anger or hatred toward anyone. And it was really more, I would say, a position of gratitude that they did get the assistance they've gotten this far. Yeah.
We heard stories that maybe there would be hostility or anger boiling over, especially in the Zatri refugee camp.
Yeah.
There are riots or little protests that happen because those people are stuck there. But like Patti said, we didn't experience any of that. We just saw gratitude. We saw people wanting to tell their stories to us. And one thing also that really touched me, we were in this apartment of this family. There were actually 3 families, 10 people crowded into this tiny little apartment. No heat. Everybody had their winter coats on. They had nothing. They'd come over with their savings, and they were running through their savings. They drained their savings account in Syria. He was a businessman, and now they were running out of money. They offered us coffee when we sat there, and I didn't want to take it, I didn't want to take from them, but they wanted to give to us. They wanted to be hospitable toward us. And in a sense, that was also part of their dignity that they were trying to preserve in their humanity, and that really touched me.
Yeah, I think the hospitality from both the refugees toward us and the Jordanians toward the refugees was probably the most lasting impression for me too.